Alright, fellas, back again. Here's your update that I was hoping to get done for this weekend, and in fact I did. The subsonic loads, 208 grain Hornady AMAX, 8 grains of Hodgdon Little Gun, all hand loads, not buying any subsonic ammunition from the store. My plan is to get this gun to cycle subsonic ammunition as well as hold the bolt back on the last round in the mag. Well, I got the gun out today and I put 5 rounds through it. I had 10 in the mag and I come back in with 5 rounds. That's because all 5 were failures to feed and 1 actually jammed. So, if you will, epic fail. But to put things in perspective, and yes, I tend to use my pool table for everything except playing pool. There's your 300 blackout. There's your 208 grain Hornady AMAX. That is a massive chunk of lead. Needless to say, 8 grains is a compressed load, which I feel like that gunpowder being what it is, almost needs to be compressed a little bit at subsonic speeds in order to get a good, solid, stable round to come out the end of the barrel. Feel free to correct me on that if you wish. I was a bit of a fool. I've been reloading for quite a while and I felt like I knew what was going on. I felt like I knew what I was doing. So, the fool part of me decided to load up 60 rounds, all same gunpowder, all same seating depth, and not testing a single one of them. So now, because the gun doesn't cycle them, I get to go break down all, 55 of them because I've shot 5 of them. And I get to add a little bit more gunpowder. According to Hodgdon load data, 8.3 grains is the maximum load for the subsonic 208 grain Hornady AMAX round, and that is 1,048 or 1,049 feet per second. I can't remember which. I am currently at 8.0 grains, and I'm going to have to bump that up a little bit. I'm going to start out with 8.2, go straight to that, and just as a fail-safe, go ahead and load some 8.3s, and if neither one of them cycle, I'm going to have to get back to the drawing board on this gun. Maybe change out the buffer. I'm running a DPMS buffer right now, which is pretty much the lightest thing on the market when it comes to a rifle buffer. As for a pistol buffer, now that's possible. I mean, I could go that direction and probably achieve what I'm looking for. But for the amount of subsonic ammunition that I'm looking to push through this gun, I'd like to do it with the current buffer that I have. So we're just going to hope for the best and see what happens. I will talk a little bit about the gun. As I mentioned in my past video when I unveiled it, I'm running a Gateway Tactical milled billet receiver. And I've mentioned multiple times the nickel boron bolt carrier group. DPMS lower parts kit. I planned on changing out the trigger and going with something like a 2-stage, maybe from Spike's Tactical, or seemed like there was another carrier that I was looking at there for a little bit as well, but hadn't gotten to that point yet. I'm still running an old commercial buttstock. I like to put a Veltor iMod buttstock on it. Mentioned the DPMS buffer and spring. CMMG barrel, 16-inch barrel, Kinetic barrel shroud. Wanted the look of the suppressor, but without the paperwork and the money involved in it. Of course, mag pull, forward angle grip, pistol grip, Yankee Hill, low pro gas block, and gas tube. That pretty well covers the gun itself. Mag pull, flip up, front and rear sights. And it's all mil spec with exception of the buttstock. Seekins Precision quad rail, 13-inch. Has a pretty hefty penny to pay for that. I think it was $240 shipped to my door. I didn't think I'd ever spend that much on a quad rail, but I decided to indulge a little bit given the fact of what I was building. The overall feel of the gun is just downright excellent. The center of gravity is right about here. And when I get the buttstock replaced, I figure it's going to move it back to right about the front takedown pin. That's where it was before I put the barrel shroud on. And you're talking about a chunk of aluminum for the barrel shroud. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of weight involved with that, but it did move it forward slightly. I'm paying attention to the weight quite a bit on this thing because I don't want it to get too heavy. If I ever decide to put a scope on it, maybe a vortex or some type of illuminated reticle 1 to 4 power scope, I need to pay attention to my weight because I don't want the gun getting too heavy. At this current point, it is easy to maneuver, easy to carry, just overall has a great feel to it, and I want to keep that. On a side note, because I feel I've talked about that gun just about as much as I possibly could, just very, very disappointed in myself in not being able to get the loads to cycle. They shot great, they were quiet, had a little bit of a bump whenever I pulled the trigger when it came to the recoil, so the action was extremely close to making the full cycle, but just a little short. I mean, it was throwing the brass, not quite as far as it would have out of my AR-15, or not quite as far as this gun will if there are supersonic loads, but it was very close. I didn't have them just coming out and landing on the ground at my feet. So I feel like it was very close. You know, 0.2 of a grain of gunpowder will definitely make all the difference in the world. So, with that being said, I'm going to drift away from the subject at hand and discuss a couple other possibilities, odds and ends. I should probably make another video for this, but I'm not going to. These are 123 grain Hornady Z Maxes. I'm sure those of you that reload have seen them. They're 310 diameter AK-47. Flat base. I plan on using them for the 300 blackout. Before you go and get skeptical and, oh, you're going to burn your barrel up and everything else, no worries. I went and spent $21 at Midway and got a 308 Lee 308 diameter bullet sizing die. And I have sized every single one of these. It took me an hour to resize that entire box of 500. Afterwards, I ran them through my sonic cleaner, and they look like brand new. You can't ever tell I did a thing to them. I used Hornady one-shot case lube as my bullet sizing lubricant, and they size just as easy or as hard, however you want to look at it, as a small base die would for a 223 cartridge. Very easy, very fast, and for $135 per 500, that is 50% less than your 125 grain nozzler ballistic tip. You get these on sale from time to time for $115, so that makes it even more cost effective. At the full price of $135, and the amount of Hodgson load gun I'm putting in the round, I want to say it's like 24.5 cents per shot. So definitely take that into consideration. I mean, that's a good high quality round, and you're not hurting it by bringing 1,000th down off of each side. I mean, 310 to 308 is not that much, and it is still a good high quality round. And for 50% less than 125 grain nozzler ballistic tips, I'm going to stick with them. So, you know, when you talk about that, you're looking at, well, high-tech ammo has 311 diameter, large Russian, 148 grain full metal jackets, $100 1,000. So there's another possibility. To load those for 300 blackout, you're looking at 19.6 cents per round, or at least I am. And that's the cost of your primer, your gunpowder, and your bullet. That's considering your brass is already paid for. Currently I'm loading 223 for 19.8 cents a round. So I can actually shoot the 300 blackout for a little bit less by doing all this. That extra step does take a little bit of time, but for 2 hours worth of your time for 1,000 rounds, that's some pretty cheap shooting. Just a little food for thought. They do load like any other flat base bullet. Unfortunately, not a big fan of a flat base bullet like the boat tail, but for that particular price, I think I'm going to truck it out. And they shoot just like any other 308 diameter bullet. Actually, you put a caliper to that, those are 308 diameter bullets now. You can make them smaller, but you can't make them bigger. So with that said, like I said, I'm disappointed in myself on the 300 blackout at this particular moment. I don't feel like it's the gun's fault. I feel like it was my fault with the particular hand loads that I put together. I'm better than that. I'm good at what I do. I know what I'm doing. And like a fool, I didn't load up a few and change my load or change my powder weight or seating depth. You know, I just kept on going. So if you're like me and you're still in the test phase, you know, load 5, up your powder charge, load 5 more, up your powder charge. You know, worst gonna happen, you're just gonna have to pull the charging handle back and reload. I mean, I wouldn't get below 7.5 grains. Hell, I couldn't get the thing to cycle with 8 grains. So I figure I'm running about 1,000 feet per second on 8 grains. It is extremely quiet. I mean, so quiet, and the muzzle blast is directed straight forward rather than out and around or even back behind you, that I didn't need any ear protection when I fired the gun this afternoon. And my wife's sitting in the living room. I'm in the backyard, and she can't hear me. She never even knew I pulled the trigger. And the TV wasn't up that loud. So that gives you an idea on just how quiet those loads are. But I hope to, in a couple of weeks, get those broke down, get them loaded up a little different, run out for another test, and see what happens. And there will be another video coming to let you know how the end result has turned out. I'm pretty sure my next one will be a positive note, positive on the particular loads as well as the gun. I really thought that what I was doing here was going to work, but we're all human, we all make mistakes, and I know what I'm doing wasn't going to be catastrophic, so I really thought that I had a good load going here, but I was proved wrong. So we'll get this straightened away, we'll get it fixed up, and I'll let you all know how the next ones turn out. With that being said, take into consideration the 310 diameter bullets, $21 for that Lee bullet sizing die from Midway, and once again the toy. Yes, I am slightly proud of that gun. At this particular point, I have $1,400 wrapped up in it. So it was a budget build from the get-go, and I didn't really hold back anything whenever I started adding to it. I was just able to get what I got at a good price. Check out the unveiling video if you haven't already, and it gives a little bit of in-depth detail on the receiver, where it came from, as well as the cost. I think that's about all. I've covered everything I possibly could. So, without further ado, I'll see you guys next time.